We are talking to our friends from Musiker-Board, and I'd like to welcome Cliff Cooper from Orange Amplification. For 50 years of age, you look pretty good.
50th anniversary.
Yeah.
No, I wish I was 50.
I know.
Yeah.
I assume 50 years ago, you started as everybody else in the business. You had too much money, didn't know what to do, and therefore decided to make an amp company. Or am I wrong?
You're wrong.
Okay, I'm wrong.
It was the opposite. I had no money. I still haven't got much.
Okay.
But, no, we started a shop. It was in the West End of London, but it was a derelict shop.
Okay.
I borrowed some money from my dad. It was £50 in those days, I suppose, probably €500 now.
Okay.
But the rent, it was derelict and it was due for demolition, so we had about 5 years in the shop. I painted the shop orange.
Okay.
Favourite colour. Got in trouble with the council, in trouble with the landlords, and oh dear, neighbours complained. But it was a fluorescent orange as well, which didn't help. Because everything even the cars in those days were black.
Yeah.
You know, and the shop was all dirty colour brown, and we just wanted it to be a bit liven up a bit. Anyway, but I managed to get away with not having to paint it, and we opened the shop. But we didn't open it as a shop. We opened it as a recording studio.
Okay.
In the basement, and we spent quite a lot of money getting it done. And what happened was then we finished it. It was a nice studio, although in those days it was only mono and stereo. We had an old EMI BTR2 machine, and then we didn't get much business. We weren't able to pay for advertising, and so I opened the shop upstairs. We whitewashed the shop, with, and then put my band's equipment on a band, and I sold. I had Vox equipment then, and we sold it in the shop. But it sold within the first week.
Okay.
So we decided to try and buy second-hand equipment,
Okay.
which we did, because none of the main Gibson, Fender, Marshall, they wouldn't supply us with equipment.
Okay, as a startup, basically.
So we had no chance of doing it. So we had to rely on second-hand equipment, and it really took off. In those days it was the really hippie days of the Stones, long hair. I had very long hair, and it really worked because we found people like Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac, Paul Kossoff, Mark Bolan, Gary Moore.
Okay.
They'd all come in the shop, hang around, play
something,
jam all day long, and get coffee and whatever. And it suddenly began to take off the shop, and it wasn't that big a shop, but soon they used to queue up outside the shop to buy it, come in, and then the studio began to pick up because of it got famous.
People found it finally.
Yeah. And we had Stevie Wonder recorded in the studio, Tom Jones, Robin Gibb wrote one of his number one records in the studio downstairs.
Good.
And that began to take off, and the next thing, but we still couldn't buy amplifiers. Well, my background was in electronics, so we designed an Orange amp.
Okay.
Or we designed an amp and called it Orange.
The number one.
Because of the shop. And we were lucky because the first band to buy it, Peter Green, I loved his guitar, and he's a great guitarist.
Yeah.
And, the whole band, Fleetwood Mac, bought all Orange. That was the first set. And straight after that, they had a number one with Albatross. Couldn't believe it. And that was so that was really good for us. We were on lots of television, and then they went to America. And
was that black and orange amps on black and white television, or
black and white television? But you could see the orange. It was It stood out. And then they went to America, and then Stevie Wonder bought a set of Orange equipment, and he actually recorded Superstition with Orange.
Okay.
The sound on Superstition is the Orange sound.
Okay.
And the Fleetwood Mac recorded with it as well, and suddenly it took off. We did a deal in Germany with a guy called Mike Leckerbusch from Beat Club Bremen.
Yeah. Okay.
And we put a lot of equipment in the studios there, and you've got all the bands, AC/DC, all the big American bands coming over, and of course once they used it, they started ordering equipment, and it suddenly exploded. But we went through the situation where we just couldn't keep up with production. We were quite a small cottage sort of industry, and we had a German distributor, and he said that, you know, if you can't supply us, we'll have to drop you. We'll have to go with other.
Okay.
So, you know, but eventually we gradually built up. It happened so quick.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to be in the shop for about 10 years, and then they redeveloped the whole street.
Okay.
What happened one day, we were just in the shop, suddenly the builders, they closed the street off.
Okay, so no customers anymore.
No, and we didn't know they were going to do that. So of course we had no customers. Bulldozers came into the street. So, but one of the boys in the shop, his father was a solicitor, a lawyer, and we put an injunction on them. In those days, you know, if you put an injunction and you lose, they can take your house. But I didn't really have anything, so so we put an injunction on. In the end, they gave us an amount of money to move. Yeah. And then we moved. Of course, it was about that time that the transistor amps were coming in. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got HH, Roland, all the Japanese amplifiers were coming in, and we just couldn't compete. Those amps were selling for about a fifth of the price that it would cost us just to make it, even, you know. And people just wouldn't, and business went down, and we closed, really. We always carried on making 1 or 2 a week by hand. Mm-hmm. And then it was about 1994, 95, Henry Justowitz from Gibson approached me and said they would like to buy the name. And I said I wouldn't sell the name, but I would license it to them for a period of 5 years. And after 4 years, it just wasn't happening. They weren't doing much with it. And I was able to get the name back. And that was about 1999. And by then I had in Denmark Street, which is known as Tin Pan Alley in London, I had about 11, 12 shops, all on the same street. One was specifically for acoustic guitars, one for electric guitars, bass guitars, pianos, and we decided that we would start making the Orange amps again. So I employed a guy called Adrian Emsley, and he was a dispatch rider. You know, he used to motorbike. Cycle messenger, but he was passionate about amplifiers, tube amplifiers, and he used to be our repairman at first, and then we redesigned the Orange amp. And luckily, you know, the Oasis, Noel Gallagher, their first 3 albums were recorded with Orange, and he came in and we designed an amplifier that exactly what he wanted. He's one of those guys who just turn the volume straight up. But
that's why there's a volume on the guitar as well.
So everything was at 11, you know. And again, he bought that, and they became enormous. So again, it was very fortunate that we had a famous person using it, the same as with the first time around with Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac, and Stevie Wonder.
So going back to the original, you've been kind of initially hunting a specific orange tone, or did that just happen?
It just happened. Well, the very first amp we had, we didn't have anybody to make it. So we designed it, and there was a company in Huddersfield, the north of England, called Matt Amp. And he made really nice quality amplifiers, but they were very much hi-fi sounding amplifiers, converted hi-fi amplifiers. And we got them to make our first amplifiers, and we used some of the original, his original, but it was too clean. It was very much a hi-fi amplifier. So we then, the second attempt, we made the first Orange amp, we called it an Orange Pix only. It was a Perspex front panel, and with that was the sound that we had.
That
Defined it, and that's one of the problems we have now, is that any amp we bring out is so important not to lose that original Orange sound. And it makes a lot of difference, because different transformers, different capacitors and resistors change the sound, and so it's always a challenge to keep that sound, the Orange sound.
Which is an information for the folks out there as well, don't look inside if there's still the same parts in there, because you might have invested plenty of time to find parts that give you back the sound that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And you're not looking for the parts, you're looking for the sound.
It's always the sound, yeah. And what we did as well to make it good, with most certainly main competition, the output transformer is so important in an amplifier. That's where the sound is really made. So whatever comes from the preamp, when it gets the output transformer, that's where it's made. And what happens in most amplifiers, you have what they call transients. And these are really high frequency pulses that you can't hear, that get into the secondary of the transformer. I hope I'm not getting too technical, Toby.
No, go ahead. Okay.
They get into the secondary of the transformer and they radiate back into the primary, but they radiate back out of phase, and it cancels the sound in the primary, and it makes the sound a little bit deady. So what we did, instead of having 3 windings, we designed a transformer with 8 windings, and that almost eliminated the transient problem, and it made our amplifiers sound really, really nice. And it's an expensive output transformer, but we won't change that.
Of course.
And we also stick into analog amps rather than digital. I don't know. I shouldn't say it, but it's like a fake sound to me. Digital amps, it's not the real thing, and they just don't sound right to me.
I like to differentiate the two, but one is like the vital life, and the other one is kind of a reproduction that serves as a tool. As soon as you use it only as a tool, you're a gigging musician. Let's say in New York, you go by Subway, your guitar on the back. You love to bring a modeler to the gig and have 98% of the real sound digital recreated. Then you go back to your studio back home and you want to feel the real thing, because there's more involved than just what you hear. There's also the feedback, how it reacts to you. And I think in that part, the modeling process isn't good enough yet. If you reduce it to the pure sound, and if you look at plenty of the studios that produce the songs that we hear, there's plenty of digital in there.
That's perfect.
But if you as a player want to feel it, want to react to what you feel, there's no other deal than the real deal.
No, analog is one day I'm sure they'll get it right. They'll probably do it. It'll probably be a hybrid circuitry, but there's something about a tube amplifier, an analog, that just sounds nice, So where are we now? 50 years since we started it was in New Compton Street we started. We've got, in America now, the US is really, so many bands are using Orange, and we have a company in China, near Shanghai, a place called Jiashan. We have 2 factories there. That's another thing with our crush range. I think Fender, Marshall, Blackstone, they go to OEM, what they call OEM manufacturers, and they'll order, say, 5,000 pieces or 10,000, and it's just rolled off. And if there's a problem, it's too late.
That's too late, because they produce that fast in a large amount.
But we actually own our own factories, and if we have a problem, and we do, it's impossible to produce an amplifier without something. Anybody who says that is not true. There is always but of course we're able, because it's our own factory, and we're doing, but we can stop production. And change it and get it right. And I feel very proud that our Chinese factory, it's good gear.
We were talking about that earlier. It's kind of, if you put the right amount of monitoring and quality control in it, if you connect to the factory, and if you're proud of the product afterwards, that's basically all you can do as a manufacturer.
Well, we often send people over to the quality control, but the quality control, yes, our amps are reliable, but they've got to sound right, and it's not a thing you can test on oscilloscopes. It's the only way to tell is with your ears.
Of course.
And we send people over. In fact, our engineer Adrian Emsley's coming over tomorrow. And he's going to talk to people about the more technical side of an amplifier. But at the end of the day, it is sound. It's what you hear. And I mean, I'm a bad guitarist, but when I play
who isn't?
But when I play a guitar, if it sounds right, you become one with the amplifier. You connect it, and you feel. I don't know. It's something you can feel right, and it doesn't matter how much the amplifier costs. Sometimes you can get a nice sound from a cheap amplifier. It depends. But you have to get that feel as though you're part of and then you play better. Definitely,
of course.
I play better with an amplifier that I love the sound of.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, speakers are important as well. A chain is as strong as its weakest link, and so obviously we've got the factory now in China. We've got 2 factories. We're building a 3rd one now in China, and we have a large facility. We do our own distribution in the United States.
Okay.
And that took a while to build up,
Of course.
And of course we've got factories in the UK where we make all the big valve,
the
big tube stuff. Sorry,
big boys' toys.
The big boys' toys, yeah. And they're made in the UK, so we are quite a global company now.
Okay.
Although still a very small company compared to the very big companies.
Yeah.
But that gives us that problem, what do we do for the future? Everything changes so quick. We're probably going to bring out a Bluetooth speaker, some headphones and things, but things change so quick. I mean, the latest thing is the Alexa.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that. But it is music, I mean, what we do has to stay as music, but it's difficult to know the direction to go, because if you don't grow, even albeit slowly, you go backwards.
Of course.
And what's happening now is lots of the bigger companies, the conglomerate companies, are buying up all the small companies. You'll get more bigger companies, and the little companies are really closing or being bought. And it's difficult to compete with those. I never want to sell. It's not money with me. Money's a bonus.
Sure.
But we often have meetings how we move forward. But one thing is sure, we'll never change our heritage and what we do. Our orange amps will always be really well made, really, and sound the way they've always done. That's one thing I can promise everybody, that we never change that. So.
And since a good maintained amp is a product that can last for 50 or more years.
Yeah, and I tell you as well with tube amps, the tubes are really important.
Yeah.
We do in fact make an orange tube tester, which all the big manufacturers use now. It matches them up, and it's not expensive. No. But if you've got a tube amplifier, it sounds good when you buy it, but after a while, if it's used a lot, the valves don't wear even. The tubes don't wear evenly, and so they're mismatched, and the amplifier just doesn't sound the way it should. And what happens is, if you're playing it, you don't notice it.
Because it's a slow process.
It's a slow process.
It's a very slow process. On the other hand, the things that can happen to the sound might bring it from the good amplifier you bought to your signature tone.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's good to, every 2 or 3 years, or if you're playing regularly, check it every 6 months or a year. Check your tubes to make sure they're in good condition.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why the amplifier shouldn't last you a lifetime.
Right.
I mean, I can't believe the amount of orange amps from that are 49 years old now, still on the market. People still use them. And
now, folks, try that with a simple Thunderbolt, USB, whatever you name the interface you're trying to put into your digital amp. In 50 years, nobody's going to have the plug that you need.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And that, for me, is one of the most important questions. If we would go digital, and let's say the digital product would be good enough for what we want, how can we make it or give it a life cycle that is as long as the life cycle we're used to it in a analog product? I don't think the digital can outbeat that.
No, I think, well, the reason I think really is because the microprocessors and the transistors, and they're changing all the time. I mean, we make we used microprocessors in some of our bass amplifiers.
Yeah.
They're still analog, but they make so many. They might make Motorola, say, might make 100,000, then they stop it and bring out a new model.
Yeah.
So a lot of those digital amplifiers, you just can't get the parts.
Right.
And that's a big problem. I rather suspect when it, you know, when I feel that it sounds good, it will probably be, to begin with, it'd be a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, part transistor, part tube. But I think there'll always be a market for tube amps.
Of course, I think so as well.
But the other thing is, with a tube amp, they don't. It reacts. It's not like a transistor or digital amp. It's done. It's done. Oh, I'm so sorry. I beg your pardon.
You're done.
So
no worries.
But I think, but with a tube amp, it's just smooth. It just, I can hear the difference. You know, easily.
There's kind of no rectangles in the signal of a
It's
tube amp.
Out, yeah.
So.
And a guitar amp. I mean, if you play a guitar through a hi-fi amp, it sounds terrible.
Of course, it's not made for that.
Because it's not made for that, you know. And I think over the years, the sound of a guitar, electric guitar through an amplifier, has got to a stage now where it's as good as it almost as can get.
Okay.
I don't think. But with digital stuff, we've now just brought out a teleport. It's called. Mm-hmm. It's a small pedal. It's a digital pedal.
Okay.
And rather than call it an orange teleport, we've called it OMEC.
Okay.
And that was in about 1974, 75. Yeah, 73, 74. We did build some transistor amps.
Okay.
And we called them OMEC, Orange Musical Electrical Company. Mm-hmm. And but they didn't sound very good, you know. And you know, that's when we decided soon after that to
stay in the known territory.
Yeah, but the new digital, the way that we write OMEC, we've now reintroduced that for anything digital we make.
Okay.
Because we invented the world's first digital amplifier.
Okay.
That was the OMEC digital. There's a story there, you know. We developed it. We had some very clever people working for us, and I went to the bank. They had about 40 or 50 transistors in them all, but we needed a microchip.
Okay.
And we needed about £40,000
to have the microchip being made
to be made for us, and the bank. Mind you, with hindsight, I'd have had my hair cut, but I didn't. And the bank manager, they wouldn't lend us the money to do it. So, but and it didn't sound that good, but it was very clever. It was a proper digital amp, you know, which memorised channels. Mm-hmm. And we dropped that. It just wasn't commercially viable. So I think, that was like the OMEC as well. So I think. If we do anything digital, it will be under the brand of OMEC as opposed to Orange.
Okay.
You know, the new teleport we've just bought, it's very good. It's quite a clever little pedal. So, see how that goes. It seems to be doing well at present. So, you know, so we try and do both.
So good luck for that. So we have the chance in another 50 years to look back and talk again.
Hopefully I'll be looking down. Don't want to look up. I'll try and look down and hopefully, join
the band or
join the band. Join a heavenly band. That sounds good.
Thank you for the time.
No, thank you. That's very kind of you.
We stay in touch.
Yes, of course.
And perhaps we are able to get an inside look into how big boys are made in England.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we keep you in a loop out there, Music-Board land. Thank you.
Thank you very much.